Kurume here, back with yet more car talk. Today we'll be looking at cars which have been discontinued for the South African market, most of which I find the decisions to be regrettable and unfortunate. However, there are some exceptions, as there are some cars which I feel, let's just say I'll be discussing that in greater detail during the course of the video. But until then, stay tuned. First and foremost, we have the Ford Bantam. I recall the last models to be sold in SA came with a 1.3 and 1.6 liter Rocam engine, respectively. And another half-ton buggy which deserves an honorable mention is the Opel / Chevrolet Corsa Utility. I recall there was an earlier model which had a 1.7 DTI engine. The later models to be sold in SA had a 1.4 and I think a 1.8 liter petrol engine. Then we have one that I felt very indifferent about upon it being launched and upon it being discontinued in the market. It's none other than the Mercedes-Benz X-Class. I always used to wonder why they decided to call it the X-Class, but now it makes a lot of sense because it's extinct in the market. And I mean, on a serious note, I just felt like it was a glorified Nissan Navara with a 3-pointed star in the front and slightly tweaked suspension, or should I say it was a tweaked suspension, because certainly it was set to offer a better driving experience, and of course the interior was given a German touch. But even then, I just felt like the difference in price was not justified, and I just couldn't find it within me to give the buggy a chance. And when it didn't sell as well as they had thought or as well as they had hoped, I don't even know what they were hoping for or what they were thinking. But I think it was certainly a pet project that didn't go down very well because it was swiftly discontinued. I don't remember how long it was in the market for, but of course, there were people that bought it for vibes. And then in 2014, the Koreans came to the party and they came in hard. They came in the form of the Kia Optima and the Hyundai Sonata. I recall the very first ones came with the 2.4 natural aspirated engine, but later on there was a facelifted model which came with, I think it was also a 2.4. They referred to it as a GDI, and I think this one was turbocharged, so you got a bit more punch from it. And I mean, this car's single-handedly catapulted the Kia and Hyundai to different heights, because before then they were just making cars which were just watered down, they were underwhelming, and you wouldn't give them a second look. But since then, they came out to make one of the most good-looking cars out there, and they made the Germans question themselves, and a lot of people started asking, is it really worth it to pay the extra money for the German car, or am I better off with this equally competent Korean brand or Korean product, which most people did? Because after that, you started to see a lot more people flocking in to get your Kias, your Hyundais. You see a lot of them on the road, and they've proven to be quite reliable. And I mean, the question now then becomes, if there were such great cars, why were they discontinued? For the simple fact that SUVs basically gained more popularity, and the two could not maintain their position in the market, similar to the VW Arteon, which I will get to at a later stage. So I think the cars did a lot of good for the brand. They allowed the brand to grow, and now you see a lot of Hyundai, Tucson on the road. You see a lot of Kia Optimas, and there's this amazing Kia SUV that has just launched right now. Just forget the name, but at the back it almost looks like Rolls-Royce Cullinan, especially with the lights. And I think from an interior infotainment styling point of view, it's just amazing. You cannot falter them for anything. And previously it would be a case of, where do I get the parts? Is it reliable? Will it last? I mean, look around them. You see a lot of Kias, you see a lot of Hyundais, which are still running, and they've shown and proven to be reliable. So that argument doesn't hold any longer. Well, I've certainly had a love-hate relationship with the next car, and it was certainly a bittersweet moment when I learned that it's no longer being offered in the South African market. And it's none other than the VW Golf GTD. one of the most pointless cars I haven't seen in a while. Because I just thought to myself, who would want to spend GTI money on a car that doesn't give you a full power, but instead gives you a trrr without the power? But over time, I learned that it's not what the GTD is about. That's not what the GTD presents. Instead, GTD is a Golf that's wrapped to seem and feel like a GTI, and it gives you better performance. So it was certainly bittersweet when I learned that it's no longer being offered, but I wasn't surprised because it just didn't stand a chance against the GTI, because people who buy a GTI want a GTI. If you want something a bit more economical, they'll just go and buy a 2-liter TDI. You know, I don't imagine people who wanted to buy diesels would want to pay GTI money, but that's just me. So, but yeah, it's no longer being offered. I'm sure you can still find a few in the second-hand market, but I've seen there's really not much there. Then we had a horrid phase from BMW. BMW decided to sell the BMW 5 Series GT. This car had the most ugly styling that I could ever think of. It was revolting. And the same person who designed the 5 Series GT probably decided, you know what, I have a great idea. Let me design the 2 Series Active Tourer. And they looked at it and they're like, yes, it looks great. And they decided to say, let's put it into production, which they did. It was sold in SA for some time, and it was also discontinued. I know some people would look at it and say, you know what, it grows on you, it's an acquired taste. I beg to differ. That car was ugly. Those two cars were ugly. And when I learned that they'd been discontinued, I was just like, good riddance. What took you guys so long? And then you had the sedans, the VW Jetta and the Passat. I mean, if you look on the second-hand market, nobody's selling these cars. All the people who bought them are keeping them, simply because they are reliable and simply bulletproof. I must say, they didn't exactly appeal to the youth, but it's one of those cars that if you get them, you hardly have problems with them. They just keep going. And the Passat was just, it's what you'd call a niche, you know. It's not for everyone. Not everybody found it appealing, and not a lot of people certainly were willing to pay the price for it. But I just feel like it's those cars that have left a gap in the market. But similar to the next car, the VW Arteon, which is effectively the successor to the VW CC, it's one of those cars that they're brilliant, they're great, they're amazing in every way. And it was not discontinued simply because it was outclassed by the counterparts. It was discontinued simply because it could not maintain its position in the market because it was not popular enough. And this is because a lot of people started moving towards the SUVs. People started moving towards the Tiguans. I mean, if you look around you, I'm sure every other car that you see, or every third car that you see, it's a Tiguan. I know I'm just exaggerating, but the point is people are buying Tiguans like hotcakes, and they're selling like hotcakes. And fortunately, it came at the cost of the sedans. So that's why the VW Jetta, Passat, and Arteon were discontinued. So last but not least, we had the Volvo V40. So this is effectively your Swedish alternative to your German counterparts, the likes of your Audi A3, your BMW 1 Series, and the likes. So the Volvo V40 was also discontinued for a similar reason. If you look at the timing, when the V40 started to be phased out, that's when the XC40 was starting to be introduced into the market. And as with most of the cars that I've mentioned on this list, the move away from your sedans and the likes was actually because people started to move more towards your SUVs. The reason for that is for the perceived driving experience, the fact that you get more space, the fact that people think, you know what, just because I'm in an SUV, they feel safer. It's just, it's a lot more appealing. And I think that's why even most brands started to invest more in SUVs, because since then, VW has introduced a lot of SUVs. They've effectively flooded the market with SUVs, starting from the T-Cross all the way up to the Tiguan. And recently they've launched Tiguan. Sounds like a Decepticon. But yeah, big ups to those who want to buy $500,000 for a Decepticon. Look, I have nothing against it. It's just me thinking, but why? Where does it fit in? Because you have a T-Cross, you have a T-Roc, you have a Tiguan, you have a Touareg. It's a lot. But look, everybody else is doing it. I mean, BMW also has 7 SUVs that they're offering on the market. I'm sure Mercedes has more, or an equivalent amount. They have the GLA, GLB, GLC, GLE. It's a lot. So it just comes to the point that, yes, people want to buy SUVs, but are they buying them for the right reasons? Is the SUV really the best car to get if you're looking for more space? Isn't a station wagon a better option? Does an SUV really give you the best driving experience, or is a C-segment sedan a better option? You know, those are the questions that I have, and perhaps you can enlighten me. Or are we getting SUVs simply because, you know, everybody else is doing it? Are we doing it for vibes? Or is there really a solid reason why we're doing it? So yeah, I think I would really like to engage further with you guys on this one.